Hello, my name is Yunkin Ah, and our presentee is Matthew and Danielle, and today we're going to address the issue of turnover. The first is the problem overview. We're given the current situation of the TSC, and then we found that the problem is the turnover. The second is the research result, and third is proposal, and the fourth is conclusion. The problem overview is, as I addressed a little while ago, it is the turnover. Past 4 years from 23.4% and it increased all the way to 71%, which is triple the amount. As 2015, the voluntary turnover was 33% and involuntary was 38%, it going out to be 71%. The research result has 4 different parts, which is the common cause, which we found that the lack of recognition, limited opportunity, and management was 3 main issues. The cultural shift it was needed for supporting supervisor is because there was a lot of new upper management, and then they are all new, so they were not well and understanding the lower level employees. So the supervisors needed to balance out the 2 aspects well enough to have stronger and stronger bond to do the productivity. The employee perspective, as I went in and talked to your general manager and one of your supervisors, we felt that supervisors were not getting enough training and 100% understanding of their duties to perform their roles as leading the employees and leading the team. The atmosphere, some of the things that I felt that as going into the Tractor Supply, it was very quiet and there was not a lot of employees and lack of communication, and the feeling of overall was kind of overwhelming by the heat and lack of clean air, which I'll take that out. So we're gonna discuss with 2 programs that I mentioned previously of pre and post.
So, as Yunki was saying, we identified some of the problems to be that the work environment wasn't necessarily stimulating, and that we need to have managers in place, supervisors in place that will help translate some of the ideas from the top level all the way to the bottom level. So the first part of our program is this pre-promotion program. It focuses on screening and recommendation. The screening portion will be conducted by management and by HR, whereas this recommendations portion is a little more informal and it's based on employee perspective, with the end goal that we will select a candidate that is qualified, that is willing to work, and that will be an asset to Tractor Supply Company. So the first part, the main portion of our pre-screening program, our pre-promotion program, is screening. We've broken this down into 4 areas. The first area is to conduct an informal interview. This interview would be more like a conversation. It could take place over lunch or something of that sort, but basically it would be a supervisor or HR trying to figure out that employee's motivation level, trying to figure out that employee's insights on what the company needs to do to be a better employer, to retain people, and to create those better supervisor-employee relations. And in addition, we would kind of get a sense of what the employee's ideas are and what they have to bring to this position. The second aspect of the screening would be to figure out leadership traits. We recognize that sometimes the best floor employee or the best team employee may not necessarily be the best leader. So we would conduct leadership assessments that would look at that. So the leadership assessments would come from big name surveys such as Myers-Briggs or the Maxwell's leadership assessment. Then we would look at a company assessment, and this company assessment really looks at more organization fit than anything for that employee. So the company would take a look at what they've established as their mission and values. As we said earlier, the company is trying to get back to those mission and values. That's why they kind of redone that top management structure. So we would look at, has this supervisor displayed honesty and all these other traits that Ms. Pollock explained to us were important to the Tractor Supply Company. And then the last portion of the screening program would be to look at the employee's history. This would all be fact-based, and this would all be based on whatever is currently in that employee's file. So we would look at when that person started working for Tractor Supply. We would look at attendance records, we would look at performance records, we would look at previous supervisor recommendations just to see what that employee's behavior has been from day one to the present. The second aspect of our pre-promotion program and the more informal side of it is our recommendations program. We recommend the John Maxwell Leadership Assessment. It is an assessment that looks at how well others perceive someone's leadership. So this assessment could go out to general employees other than the person, the nominee that's being considered. And then we also created a supervisor recommendation survey. So this is an example of the recommendation survey we created. Basically what this allows is for an employee to recommend someone for supervisor. So this recommendation would include 1, who the recommender is, 2, who they are recommending, and then 3, why they are recommending them. And this would just be another point of information, another data point for HR and management to consider when they are selecting a candidate. They would consider not only the things that they looked at in terms of screening, but also what is the likelihood that these people will be received well as a leader.
So the second half of the promotion program has to do mainly with training. We decided that there needs to be training as soon as the person gets promoted into the new position, and then there also needs to be training later on during the life of the job. So the first part of the training is the supervisor training, which would happen as soon as the person gets hired into the new position. The first part of the supervisor training would be the pre-screen topics, and that would basically be taken from the assessment that we did before the candidate was interviewed and things like that, and we would find the things that they lacked in, and then we would just do a training on that. On those skills. And the second part would be just basic general leadership skills. Leadership skills such as communication, risk management, stress management, just things of that nature. And then we would go on to the third stage of the supervisor training, which would be shadowing another manager or supervisor, someone who does jobs that are similar to what this candidate would be doing. And then they would also do job sharing with this other candidate over the span of their training. So the second half of it is continuous training, and basically we separated that into 4 different sections. The first 2 sections go together with the performance needs and satisfaction surveys. Basically, that would be just an evaluation of how the company is operating and how the employees are satisfied with that manager's managerial capabilities. And based off of those 2 things, we would provide training to that employee to just make sure things continue to run smoothly and in a good manner. We would also want to provide training for emotional intelligence, both internal and external. The internal emotional intelligence would be things such as how that manager takes criticism and reflects it back onto their employees, and also the external criticism, which is basically understanding employees' emotions and how to deal with them. And then we also thought it was a good point to stress general leadership again, just because those are skills that need to be used throughout the life of a job. And then we wanted to give you just the overarching theme of our whole presentation. Danielle covered the pre-promotion, and I covered the post-promotion, and this is just the whole chart that we came up with and the whole program that we're trying to implement.
So in conclusion, a lot of the issues with turnover really do relate back to leadership. we have read before that people don't leave jobs, they leave people. So we want to make sure that we have management in place, the people who daily interact with employees, that are supportive, that are great leaders, that are building and developing the people under them, and making Tractor Supply Company a very desirable place to work. So that's why during this entire presentation, we really focused on making sure we hire the right supervisor and making sure once we put them in that role, we continue to provide them with the resources and the support they need to remain productive in that role.
So at this time, I would like to thank Ms. Pollock for giving us this opportunity to work with Texas Supply Company, and I would like to thank your employees and general manager and supervisors taking their time to having us to invite in Texas Supply to discuss and have a meeting with them. So at this time, do you have any questions for anybody?